Hey y'all. So I have a thought, a theory that I have not expanded on, and it's formulating as I think about it. So it's one of those like introspective, retrospective, the microcosm, the macrocosm type of conversations. One of those like, if a tree falls in the forest, but no one's there to hear it, did it really make a sound type of things, right? Complex, abstract, right? And I was thinking about stereotypes. It just hit me out of nowhere, honestly, stereotypes. And if you know anything about stereotypes or took a college course, you would know like there are negative stereotypes and then there are actually positive stereotypes, but nonetheless, they are stereotypes. For example, a negative stereotype would be like black people steal. The negative connotation is like, if you're black, that equates to theft, you are a thief. There's no merit in it, but it's a stereotype, right? And then a positive stereotype would be like, all Asians are good at math. Now, some people might see it as like, well, what's the big deal? I mean, like, who wouldn't want to be associated with academics? Who wouldn't want to have a positive stereotype? But it's still a stereotype, because if you are Asian, for example, in this example, and you're not good at math is not your forte, then it makes the person feel as if there is something defective about them because they are not meeting the stereotypical standard, versus that person being just a human being. We have our strengths, we have our weaknesses, some things we're great at, some things we're not great at. But when we box people in, even with positive stereotypes, it still blocks and boxes people in, because it does not allow people to be their unique, individualized, authentic selves. So now that we got that out the way, I was thinking about stereotypes, and then somehow it led into like classism. And then I thought about it, I was like, what if wealth is a mental illness? And I know that shit sounds wild crazy, because when I said it and I thought about it, I was like, girl, what is you talking about? And here goes the ambulance. So even when I first thought about that, I was like, that doesn't even make sense. But then I was like, having introspective thought with myself, having conversation with my inner voice. We should all have an inner voice, but come to find out, not everybody has an inner voice, which to me is more wild than having an inner voice. The fact that you don't have these internal conversations kind of makes me be like, So it's just real hollow inside. It's very much hello, 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 hello. I'm like, wow, okay. I will be sleeping with one eye open around you. But nonetheless, I was having an internal conversation. I was just like, that kind of sounds wild crazy. But then think about it. Like, people who are very wealthy don't live in our reality, because they have the means to step out of day-to-day responsibilities and social contracts and even like social etiquette, respectability politics, because they are wealthy. Wealthy people have the means to break the law and not face any punishment for it, i.e. Wall Street, i.e. the banking crisis, the mortgage crisis of 2008. The fact that none of these top execs, none of these big time Wall Street bankers went to prison speaks volumes. So because rich people, wealthy people don't live in this reality. Think about it. Like, literally think about it. The fact that they don't have to work. I mean, wasn't it Kim Kardashian who was like, oh, y'all broke bitches gotta get off your ass and work? But what kind of work do you do? Your job is just to be in existence. You give no productivity to this thing called the economy. You don't get nothing from the mud. You don't even raise your kids. You got like 16 nannies. You don't cook. You don't clean. You don't do shit. You pay other people to basically manage your existence, like a plague, like a virus, like a parasite. You need a host. You pay other people to manage your existence. You don't do shit for yourself, but have the audacity to tell an everyday person who is busting their ass, raising their kids, taking on 2-3 jobs, barely holding it up, living through credit card after credit card after credit card, like basically trying to do everything they possibly can within the confines of what is considered legal just to be above water. And then here comes this bitch, faker than a $3 bill, talking about, oh, why don't you bum bitches get off your ass? And it's like, bitch, what have you ever worked a job where you actually had to use your brain, where you actually had to bust a sweat? Like, how dare you, bitch? But it speaks to the volumes of aloofness. It speaks to the volume of disconnect. It speaks to that cognitive dissonance because you don't live that reality. For example, we are Americans. And as much as we empathize and we sympathize with, you should. If you have a soul, you should. With human rights tragedies such as Yemen, such as Syria, such as Pakistan, right? Or Afghanistan, right? We say, oh, these are human rights crises. Like, how could we let this thing continue? Let's donate to different organizations, help these people out. But at the end of the day, we don't live these realities. We don't have to worry about bombs being dropped on us. We don't have to worry about some fringe group busting in our homes, stealing up our daughters, killing our sons. Well, killing our sons is another conversation, but you know, you don't have to worry about nobody coming in and snatching up your wife, snatching up your kids. They raping everybody out here. Like, these are not your realities in the ways that it would be in a war-torn nation. So yes, you can sympathize, maybe even empathize, but these are not your realities because this is not your life. The cognitive dissonance. You don't have to worry about rummaging through trash just to find your daily bread. You don't got to worry about where you're going to find water to wash your ass. You don't got to worry about none of that shit. Why? Because you live in the United States, and if you're listening to this channel, you most likely than not probably have a roof over your head. You're probably not homeless. So the lack of personal experience, and because we are not communal, because we don't share spaces, because we don't speak honestly and truthfully, we tend to use colorful language or beat around the bush or play into respectability politics. We don't say it for what it actually is. So many people are disconnected and aloof from the daily realities and struggles that we all go through in this country called the United States. Rich people and wealthy people, I don't believe the so-called term of affluence. I think that shit is made up. I think that's brain rot. I think that's an excuse for the parasite class to continue being parasites. But I do think there is some truth in the cognitive dissonance of wealthy people and poor people. Like, it's easy for them to just be like, just get another job, work harder, the same tropes. But they are coy to admit that, oh yeah, actually I didn't have to work a job. Like, my father owned the company and through nepotism I got this job. Like, they are not quick to admit that. They're not quick to say, well, because I'm a part of this group, or I was raised in this culture, or I'm from this super zip.
They are never that bold like Kim Kardashian with her chest out talking about get off your ass and work, to talk about, oh, I received my wealth and my benefits through generational wealth. I'm a trust fund baby. This is nepotism at work. They are very shy to admit that part. But they always want to tell us regular people who got to get it from the mud, grab yourself up by the bootstraps. But your pappy owns a motherfucking bootstrap factory, but you don't like to admit that.
That's why I had these opportunities. And even though they know it, these are the same people who have accountants, who have attorneys, who have researchers. Like, they blow big money to get other people to do the brainiac work. But they feel like as if they are the exception because there's only a small group. And that small group runs the world. And because they are part of that circle, they believe it's because of their own ingenuity. They believe it's because of their own wit, their own stride, their own standard, their own this and the third. And they refuse to see, like, no, it's because wealth solidifies itself. So you are the what? First generation maybe, but most likely the second or third generation of some upper class, wealthy, above average
family or some type of business institution. La Paris Hilton. She has her wealth because she is the granddaughter of the Hilton heir. She's part of the Hilton heir. You think that brain dead bitch really got the smarts, the wits, the tenacity to be that wealthy? No, she got it from the trust fund.
And because these rich people don't live the everyday reality of us working class, poor class people, this is why it's a mental illness. This is why to them, well, we'll just put it into our yearly fiscal budget if a couple of our employees die at work. And you should look that up. The numbers of people who actually die on the job. Jobs are dangerous. And if you're a wealthy corporation and your mind is stuck on money, your mind is stuck on capitalism, your mind is stuck on materialism, the way your brain function is just like, it is just the cost to do business. So I might this year have to spend $100,000 on funeral costs for 5 employees who are going to die in my factory. Well, at least I already have it in the budget anyways.
And these lawyers have a whole, and these employers, these corporations have a whole legal team. So even though they know that most likely than not a person's going to die on the job, they will still fight you tooth and nail not to pay a penny in those on the job deaths or death by job. They go out of their way to not have to pay, a la Jeff Bezos and Amazon. There have been countless people who died while working at the Amazon factory. Y'all remember that tornado that passed through, and that man who called his wife and was like, oh, Amazon won't let me go home. They threatening to fire me if I go home to live, to survive the tornado, and that factory got creamed. Think about it. Anything obsessively is a form of mental illness. If a woman, a man, especially a woman, because you would call her a cat lady, had 1 billion cats, you will call her insane. But a person who has $1 billion, you will call them successful. Because this is capitalism, baby. Capitalism capitalizes off of everybody else's downtroddenness.
Versus someone who is of the working class, the poor class, who have that consciousness, who has that, is it the bills or is it rent? Is it medicine or is it gas? Because you know that reality, you can see the importance of human connections. You can see the importance of a more equal society. But if you're a capitalist and you live through the gaze of someone else does the dirty work, and all I got to do is exist, and I am the money man, I am the ideal woman, like my existence is exceptionalism, and I deserve everything I got, even if it is nepotism, even if it is classism, even if it is racism, even if it is sexism, I won't admit it, because in my reality, it just happens to be that way. It just happens to be all white. It just happens to be all male. It just happens. Meanwhile, from our perspective, the working and the poor class, we see it from the perception of, no, your daddy owned this company. You know, your great grandfather invested in this company. It is not just happened. And let's peel back the legality of it all. At the time, women couldn't vote, so you didn't have competition. At the time, black men were dealing with Jim Crow, so you didn't have competition. When you layer it on, it gives a more complex and more vivid depiction of what the conversation is talking about, what is the core point of the conversation. But depending on your social status and how you are viewed in the hierarchy, in the social scale of this reality, this Western society, you can always hide behind exceptionalism when we, the working class, the poor class, we see it as, no, it's nepotism, it's classism, it's sexism, and so on and so forth. So yes, I do believe rich people, wealthy people are living in a form of mental illness, in the sense of, bringing it back, circling it back to the first example, stereotypes. If you are a recipient of negative stereotypes, you would love to be associated with something nice, something good, something esteem filled. But if you are the person who doesn't match that stereotype, in the example, you're an Asian, but math isn't your thing, now you feel as if you're not as Asian as you should be, or you're not a good Asian because you're not personally good at math. So I feel like on an economic scale, taken away from the stereotypes, we're using economics, those who are what would be deemed good stereotypes of this example with economics, they live through some type of like dissonance, some type of cognitive dissonance, because they don't have to relate with the average day, everyday person. They're not taking public transportation. They're not pumping their own gas. They're not buying their own groceries. the things that we everyday people have to manage, and we have to figure out what's going to get paid. How do we budget? How do we get to the next thing? These are things that are already settled for them. These are things that they don't have to think about. Someone else takes care of it.
If you think about it, wealth is a form of delayed adolescence, but we give credence to it because they're wealthy. We don't point out the fact that they are oblivious to adulting. They are oblivious to what is this thing called adulthood and taking care of yourself and managing your own life and being responsible for yourself. This is why when we hold these mega rich celebrities accountable, they have public tantrums, they point fingers, they suddenly have this orchestrated shady group that's going to go against them, that there's some type of hate train or it's the media propaganda. There's all this other weirdo shit because they are grown ass adults who are treated like babies. They are handled with kitten gloves. But we don't say that part out loud because they're wealthy.
And because someone else takes care of it, they, the wealthy, believe it's not an obstacle. Because they have the means to purchase this item, purchase this labor, to them, it must not be expensive. And truth be told, to them, it's a non-factor, because these are not things that they're worried about. They're worried about the next yacht. They're worried about the next Met Gala. They're worried about getting their titties done. That's their life. That is what is in importance to them. Subpar, irrelevant, trivial, vain, materialistic bullshit. Whereas us, the working class, the poor class, we can't afford the luxury of getting our titties done. We don't have enough money to get an annual checkup. So between titties and checkup, the annual checkup is going to be more of a priority than getting fake titties. But if you're wealthy and you already have that planned out, mapped up, it's already in your lesson plan, it's already in your agenda, it's already in your schedule, you have 3 assistants who manage your life, to you, doctor's visits must cost like 10 cents. And to you, not only is it cheap, it costs to you is 10 cents, but it's not even an issue to even think of. These are not even things that matter to you because they're just average. It's like the sky is blue, the grass is green. It just is. These are not things you have to think about. These are not things that make you sweat in the middle of the night. These are not things that are burdensome to you because, again, it's like the sky is blue, the grass is green, it rains, water's wet. These are things that are already happening for you, and these are things that are already scheduled for you, as well as it's a given that you have access to this. Whereas the poor and working class, it is not a given that free and top tier healthcare is given to them.
I mean, like, think about it. For real, for real. The biggest scandal of the first quarter of this year was Will Smith, a rich Negro, slapped Chris Rock, another rich Negro, at a very wealthy and institutionalized Academy Award. Oh, gee whiz, let's talk about it. Let's be frantic about it. Bitch, is your bills paid? Bitch, can you afford these student loans? They push it back till August, but they're about to restart it anyways. Can you afford that? Like, bitch, have you seen the price of rent? Like, bitch, did you go to the grocery store? Them shit's so bad fucking inflated. Like, bitch, did you see the price of oil? But no, 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 no. Let's focus on rich Negroes doing rich shit that we average folks would catch a felony assault charge. Let's focus on that. Because again, rich people's problems ain't everyday poor class, working class people's problems. But yes, let's hyper focus on the wealthy because Lord knows they're sweating bullets and hyperventilating about how hard life is for the proletarian. Lord knows they give a fuck about us and our daily struggles the way that we so hyper focus on their own theatric problems.
So this is why I think, and I'm working with this theory, I'm working with this, that wealthy people obviously don't live in this reality. You see the airheads, you seen Paris Hilton when she had that Living Simple Life show, you see how disconnected rich people are. I mean, even with the Will Smith slap, I'm over it. I don't want to talk about it. But yes, there is a point to classism, because if we regular folks went around slapping each other, there will be lawsuits. There will be at least a jail experience, right? Or if we regular folks started smacking rich folks, we'd definitely see prison time, right? Whereas, was it Alec Baldwin can kill someone on set and he gets to go home? Like, what? Yes, there's heavy elements of classism. Yes, I see it. But that wasn't the point people were actually really mad at, so I didn't talk about it. But yes, there is a point to that. And it feeds into the mental delusion of wealthy people, of rich people. Why I say, like, they don't live in this reality. The way that their brain is shaped, they are disconnected. Same thing with these rapper guys who are like 30 years removed from the hood, but all they talk about is gun toting shit behind their gated communities. Is that cognitive dissonance? They're talking about drugs that the young kids don't even use anymore. They're talking about drugs back in the 80s, and it's like, nigga, the 80s was like 40 years ago. Like, what are you talking about? It's that cognitive dissonance. Like, they've been rich long enough to not have to talk about these things, not have to engage in this. But then again, you see that their minds are stuck in one particular era because they don't live the day-to-day grind. Even let's, in this example, let's use it, the drug dealer ass reality. Like, drug dealers out here using Snapchat. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But the point is, they can't talk about what's current because they don't live that reality. And the same thing for rich people. They cannot talk about the struggles of the everyday person. They cannot relate to that because that's not their reality. And again, what I use for the example, within war-torn areas, we can sympathize, we can empathize every time we hear about it, every time we see it in the news, every time it's brought up to our faces, yes. But on the day-to-day, we know where our bread is. We know where we're going to have a roof over our heads. These day-to-day realities of people in war-torn areas are not things that we face with. So yes, we can empathize and sympathize, and the closer we are to that reality, meaning we have family members in these war-torn areas, we have significant others in these war-torn areas, you know, maybe we visited there or whatever our relationship attachment to these areas, yes, the deeper the bond is. But for the everyday average American, we don't care like that because these are not our realities. And the same thing with rich people, wealthy people. They don't care because these are not their reality. So in essence, I wouldn't say they're full-blown like borderlines, or yes, I would say narcissists, but like these other diagnoses. I wouldn't necessarily say all that, but there is something to say about that work consciousness, as well as their class consciousness, as well as their humanity. All of that is tied into that, because let's be real, the way that most people would treat Beyonce is nowhere close to how we would treat that homeless woman down the street. So yes, our humanity is attached to our class consciousness, which is attached to our ability to make it up this social economic ladder that is modern day late stage capitalism. So all of that is very true. Now, that felt like a mouthful, but I feel like I very much precisely spoke about what I needed to say. If you understood what I was saying and you kind of get the gist of it, you can kind of see the outline of this theory, definitely leave your comment down below, because I am interested in having this conversation. Do you have any examples that you could use for context or to help other people understand the example or the explanation that I'm giving? Definitely do so down below. But that is all I have for y'all for today. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that, you know what to do. There's also more information in the description box, just like every other YouTuber. And with all that being said, y'all, be blessed, be enlightened, be loved. I am out. Peace. Oh, another example. This is why Maxine Waters recently was having some type of demonstration where she was talking to the public in California. And allegedly someone said, oh, where Maxine Waters was speaking, or whatever affiliation she was associated with, the reason why she was there, wherever she was at, right? And they said that they were handing out Section 8 applications. And of course, you know, housing is up the ass. Stupid expensive. Places like California, a rinky-dinky studio apartment, not even a one bedroom, a studio apartment is costing $3,000. That's motherfucking ridiculous. So, like, affordable housing isn't developed. It's not enough affordable housing. The housing that we do have that's available is for the private market, and they want to charge you ridiculous prices. So they will leave those apartments empty before they would actually rent it at an affordable rate. But anywho, Maxine Waters was speaking to the public, and there was a woman there, and she was like, well, I thought you was giving out like Section 8 applications. Like, what's going on? And Maxine Waters was like, no, that's not what I'm here for. But y'all could just move on. And she was like, the homeless woman, she was like, what do you mean move on? Like, we're homeless, we ain't got nowhere else to go. And Maxine Waters legit out of her mouth told these people, because it was a crowd of people who are homeless or looking for affordable housing, looking for the application. And she'll be told those Section 8 waiting lists are years long. You need housing today. You're not gonna get it at least 5 years from that today. So she tells them homeless folks, go home. And they were like, where are we supposed to go? We're homeless. We don't have a home. That's why we're here. That's the cognitive dissonance that I'm talking about. These people don't have a home. These people are living on the streets. These people are desperate. And your way to deal with them, to respond to them, is go home? Like, what? That's like someone saying, I'm hungry. I have no money. I have no food. And you like, what? Nah, for real? Man, you gotta hold your head up. But I'm feeling to go. My wife is cooking some mean motherfucking lasagna, but I holla. It's like, what? What? But that's the cognitive dissonance that I'm talking about. These are not your realities. These are not your class reality. Because you have a home. You are a representative. You are a congresswoman. So of course to you, if you don't like what is being said, you'll just go home. But where do homeless people call home? Maxine?
Another location where they're taking apps. Is there any more locations than this one?
No, it might have been just so many people out here.
1 minute. I want everybody to go home. And I want
we don't got no home. Okay. That's why we here. Miss Miss Waters, what home we gonna go to?
Yeah.
Just a moment.
It might have been some
Just a moment. Nothing is going to happen here today. Nothing is going to happen anymore today.
What about all these names?
What we're gonna? Well, that's what. Give me.
Well, can you leave mine?
Excuse me.
Can you leave?
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. And so I will be downtown with Lassa. I will get the housing authority. That's why they came out here today. I made them come out here. And I'm going to go.
And you need to know why they're failing, because Blanca Jimenez repeated, we gave her several meeting requests for you concerning this in Lassa for years. And now they're sitting here.
There's nobody in Washington who works for their people in a harder than I do.
I believe you.
I don't want to hear that.
I believe you. So can we finish though? Work with me.
No.
Work with me so we can house people. That's what I'm doing.
I do every day.
What you do every day? I'm still on the damn
the
street.
money that you got in Washington, D.C. I will continue to work. I will get the information. There's no more vouchers today.
They would never know about you.
And that's why I truly do believe people who are wealthy, people who are rich, don't live in this reality. There's something within their brains, and the more they've been rich than they've been poor, especially those who are born and bred into wealth, poor little rich girls, the Paris Hilton types, the Kimberly former West types, they are clueless, literally dumb, literally airheads, literally aloof. Because they don't live in this reality. They live in a bubble that doesn't exist. This is why they're very high maintenance. This is why they're very bitchy and entitled. This is why they're very spoiled. And when they don't have their way, they throw fits, they throw tantrums, they try to get people blackballed. This is why. They're overgrown children. They are parasites. And they implant themselves on hosts. And those hosts tend to be the poor class. The class that they exploit. Because without the poor class, what would be of the rich? What would the rich categorize themselves if it wasn't for the poor? Because they can exploit the poor, thus they become rich. But without the poor, they are nothing. Ask Chris Smalls, who just won that Amazon union. They won to unionize. Without the poor, what is rich?